I'm not a bird watcher or twitcher, or whatever they call it, something like that. But I do have an appreciation for capturing nature on film from time to time. So the other day I noticed the rarish sight of a couple of bullfinches in the garden, and I decided to spend a few days trying to capture them on film and get an idea of what other birds were visiting the feeders. You're not going to get any kind of Wikipedia or expert kind of descriptions or knowledge from me about birds. This is all just purely first-hand observations. There were far more blue tits than any other bird. I've no idea how many were visiting the feeders because it's a constant stream of them all day. They basically stay there eating for as long as they can before another bird disturbs them. And sometimes they seem to politely pop out of the way and wait for others to finish and then they'll come straight back. People associate robins with winter, I guess because they don't migrate when it gets colder. So they do stick around all year and maybe we don't notice them as much because we're not looking for them. At the moment they are still quite numerous. There aren't as many as the blue tit, but they're still fairly common. They're also more noticeably different in sizes. There's some that have this classic plump look, the kind you'd see on a Christmas card. And then there's these really quite skinny, thin ones. They can sit on the smaller feeders okay, but the larger ones don't. And they tend to hop around on the floor and just pick up any bits of food that have fallen. Long-tailed tits are far less common, and they seem to arrive all at once at certain times of the day, as opposed to the steady stream of blue tits that we seem to get. They pretty much act identically to the blue tits, but they seem to happily eat in pairs and in groups. So I don't know if they're part of the same family. The great tit is a much rarer sight, and again they will appear at certain points of the day and usually around the same time as each other. I still couldn't say how many there are though, but it feels like maybe a handful. I don't know, I'm totally guessing. Their presence seems to scare off the other birds, but they don't hang around as much. They seem to land, pick up a large seed, and then just take off. Presumably they're eating it in safety somewhere else. On occasion they'll stay a bit longer. I barely have any footage of them, so I guess there aren't really many around here, but these are coal tits and they behave similar to the blue tits as far as I can see. The rarest bird in the garden is definitely the bullfinch. To me, it seems like there's only this one couple that appear roughly once around midday and 3 p.m. Usually the male would clear the large feeder and take a small snack, making sure everything was safe for the female. Then she would basically just sit there and have a slow, relaxed lunch at her own pace. And I've seen her scare off other birds that try to get too close, and she won't move until she's done, or she gets scared off by, I don't know, a loud noise or something. For the most part, everyone seems to keep their distance when she's about. This is the only type of bird I've seen in the garden with a distinctive difference between the male and the female. The male has this vibrant chest, which apparently is pink according to the internet, but for some reason my eyes see orange. Either way, it's amazing to see these wild animals revisit every day, and you know it's the same ones. Since getting all this footage together, I have seen a couple greenfinches, and I have not managed to record them. But yeah, I saw those the other day. And there's more birds in the area, of course. They just don't seem to visit this corner of the garden. And yeah, so far that's everything I've seen. So this was a short film about birds, I guess, but also not quite. I've been thinking recently, well, life can be a bit overwhelming, and sometimes it's difficult to not get sucked into this cycle of anxiety and stress about achieving things whilst simultaneously not achieving much of anything. And my head can easily get fuzzy, and I skip from one procrastinating activity to another. And it's not because I don't want to be productive. I guess I just focus too much on what the end result of something should be and how I want that now. And every moment I haven't achieved that feels like wasted time. And that's the cycle of thought that just takes over, and then the day's gone and it's late, and I'm even more frustrated. I know what I need to do because I've done it before. Break down a project into steps and have smaller, achievable goals. I've managed it before. I've finished lots of creative projects, but it's always been a battle in my head trying to get into that mindset. I don't know how to explain it other than there's just too much noise. So why am I talking about birds? I guess the point is I made a thing and I did it by not worrying about any part of the process. I just got my camera, and then that helped me power through the noise and just focus on what's within the frame. And I've realised, it's like being in the moment and being part of a creative process is like releasing a pressure valve. Everything just settles, and finally I get some clarity and purpose. And this is what creativity and filmmaking is to me. And it's a crime that I'm not picking up the camera more and just shooting sometimes, and shooting anything, it could be anything, because it seems to at least temporarily solve my problems of not being able to focus. Obviously, filmmaking can be a stressful experience, especially when working with a large team, with strict deadlines and budgets, etc. I haven't been a part of that, but I do tour and work in events, which definitely has some crossover. For me, being swept up in the process is actually a freeing experience, and it gives me clarity. And that's when the stress and anxiety of a deadline actually is a benefit. The way I look at it, once you're rolling, worries about the past and future are gone, and only that moment and the events unfolding in the present really matter. And this applies to making and also watching film. And I think that's why I love cinema and the escapism it offers. So I guess this film isn't really about birds, despite the title, but in a way it is, because I wasn't thinking about filming birds. I just made the decision to do it, and then I was doing it, and the only thing on my mind was the birds and experiencing them in that moment. In the long run, this hasn't fixed all my problems about mentally focusing, but this exercise, if you like, has helped as a reminder that it is possible. I can stop the cycle and break through that noise in my head. I didn't set out with a goal in mind when I was making this short film about birds, but is also not about birds. But yeah, it was mainly just for me and just for helping me. But if it helps you in some way, if you can apply this to your situation and what you're going through, then it was worth making, I think.